A seventh chord is a combination of a triad with a seventh added on, a seventh degree up from the root of the chord. Now, there are several different types of seventh chords, and let's look at them one at a time. Let's start with a basic C triad. We have a C major triad. We can add on the diatonic seventh degree, which is the B natural. And that's called a major seventh chord. We have minor seventh chords, and that's when you add on to a minor triad. So let's look at a C minor triad. And we add on a minor seventh, which is a flattened seventh degree. So that would be a B flat. And that's called a minor seventh chord. Now, there's two kinds that we can add on to a diminished triad. Let's look at a C diminished. We can have what's called a diminished seventh chord, and that's when we add on a diminished seventh, and that's a half step lower than a flattened seventh. So we get an A natural. And that's called a diminished seventh chord, or a full diminished seventh chord. Now you might be thinking, well, that A, it looks like the sixth. Why do we call it a diminished seventh? Well, technically, this A is a diminished seventh degree. It's not the sixth. It's the minor seventh that's lowered a half a degree, just like the fifth is lowered a half a degree. So basically, a full diminished chord like this is just a succession of minor third intervals. C to E flat, to F sharp, to A. It's all minor thirds. Now related to this, we have what we call a half diminished seventh chord. It's sometimes called minor 7 flat 5, and that's when you don't lower the flattened seventh degree on top of a diminished triad. So we get this. It's a C minor triad with the fifth lowered, so we get a diminished triad, but a regular minor seventh added on. So half diminished or minor 7 flat 5. We have a couple of less commonly used seventh chords. We have a minor triad with a major seventh added on, and we're going to see that in a few minutes. And that's basically a minor triad with the natural seventh added. It's the James Bond chord. It's a very strong tonic minor sounding chord when you're in the harmonic minor scale. We're going to look at that in a few minutes, but you get that one minor triad, but with the major seventh added on. Another not so common, but still important to know seventh chord is adding a flattened seventh onto an augmented triad. So you'd get a C with a sharp 5 and a dominant seventh function added on, or a flattened seventh. And saving the best for last, the dominant seventh chord. We started looking at this at the end of the last video. Now this is the one that gives a really strong sense of tension or dissonance that needs to be resolved. And when you combine that with the root movement of a fourth, you get a really strong feeling of resolution. So let's look at a C7 chord. It's basically a major triad with the flattened seventh added on. Now, what's special about a chord like this is you have a major triad, but you also have the interval of a tritone between the third and the seventh degree. You get those two. And now that's a very dissonant sounding interval, and it demands resolution. It really wants us to go here. And if you invert it with the seventh on the bottom, it resolves upwards. But either way, you're getting that dissonance to consonance, that tension to release. And that's because you're getting the seventh resolving down to the third of the next chord, and the third resolving up to the tonic of the next chord. So C7 would be the dominant 7 chord in the key of F, because that's the 5th degree of the F scale. So again, C7, we combine it with the root movement of a fourth because we're going C to F, and we get that strong feeling of resolution. So let's just review this and look at it in notation. I'm going to hide the keyboard for a moment, and let's look at what this looks like on a staff. So here we have a dominant 7th chord, and that's C, E, G with the B flat added on. So the major triad with the minor 7th. We have the minor 7th chord, which is a C minor triad with the minor 7th. A C major 7th, which is all diatonic notes of a C major scale, C, E, G with the 7th added on. The half diminished chord, which is the C diminished triad with the regular minor 7th added on. we have the minor major seventh, and that's the C minor triad with the major added on, and the full diminished seventh chord, which is the diminished triad with the flattened seventh added on. This should actually read B double flat rather than A natural, but I don't want to get into that at the moment. And now let's look at what these look like when we put seventh chords on all the notes of the diatonic scale. Let's just change the view here a little bit so we can see it a bit more nicely. There we go. Now, the 1 chord is major 7, C major 7. This is in the key of C. Of course, it's important to know them in all the keys. The 2 chord is D minor 7th, so lowercase 2 with MIN 7 written. The 3 chord is E minor 7th, 3 minor 7. The 4 chord is a major 7. The 5 chord is the dominant 7th, and this is what gives that strong dominant feeling wanting to lead back to the home chord. So G 7th to C major 7 is a very strong tension resolution harmonic movement in the key of C. The 6th chord is a minor 7th chord, using all the diatonic unaltered notes. And the 7th degree of the scale, when you build a 7th chord on that, is half diminished. We get B, D, F, A, and the B to A is the regular minor 7th, although B, D, F are the diminished notes of the triad. So B half diminished, and then back to the 1 chord. And let's hear what these sound like when they're all played together. Now let's look at what happens when we form 7th chords based on the notes of the natural minor scale. So here's C minor, we're in 3 flats. The 1 chord is a minor 7 chord. The 2 chord is half diminished. The 3 chord is major 7, and I'm calling it flat 3 major 7 in Roman numerals now in case we only know that we're in the key of C and not specifically C minor. The 4 chord is minor 7, lowercase I and V. The 5 chord is minor 7. The 6th chord is major 7, and again I'm indicating it as flat 6 with the Roman numerals. And the flat 7th chord is major 7, and then back to the tonic chord. So let's hear what that sounds like. And let's look at the harmonic minor scale chords. So here we have C minor major 7 as the tonic chord because we have the B natural, that raised 7th using the harmonic minor scale. The 2 chord is still half diminished. Now the flat 3, we get that augmented chord with the major 7th because we have the sharpened 5th but the dominant 7th. The 4 chord is minor 7. Sorry, a little bit of a typographical error there. It should read minor 7. The 5 chord becomes dominant 7 because we have the B natural. We get that strong leading tone resolving up to the root if we resolve that to a C minor. The 6th chord is major 7 still, and the 7th chord now is falling on the B natural, so we get a full diminished 7th chord because there's an A flat in C harmonic minor, and then finally back to the tonic chord. So let's listen to this. So nice, colorful, rich sounding 7th chords that are built on the harmonic minor scale. Let's look at another way of notating these symbols. So we have the 1 minor major 7 chord. You can indicate that with a circle around the 7, which indicates the major 7th, but MIN indicates minor, so that's the 1 chord on the minor major 7th, and there we are, 3 flats in the key signature. Now for half diminished chords, we have this little null sign. It's an O with a line through it. That's the traditional symbol for half diminished. You can also write minor 7 flat 5. Either way is acceptable. The 3rd degree is a unique chord. It's a major 7th with an augmented 5th, and that plus indicates the sharpened 5th degree. 4 minor 7. 5, 7. When you have just 7 in the superscript with no other indication, that indicates that it's dominant 7th. That's the default, unless you specifically write minor or major or augmented or diminished. So that's dominant 7th, and then major 7th for the 6th chord. And then again, we have the half diminished on the 7th degree here, and then finally back to the 1 chord. So that's just another way of notating it. So I just want to end off by giving you some ideas on how to practice this. Let me close this and bring the keyboard back. You can use some of the other exercises we've used for the other triads and just go up and down chromatically doing the different types of seventh chords. So this would be major seventh chords. I'm just playing octaves in the left hand. Here's minor sevenths. And so on. Dominant sevenths. And so on like that. And you can practice them with half diminished chords, diminished sevenths, and minor 7 flat 5, minor major seventh. So good idea to use those other exercises with the drum grooves and the bass notes and go up and down chromatically. And also with inversions, you can invert these the same ways as triads, but because there's an additional note in the chord, it's a 4-note chord now, not a 3-note chord, we also have a third inversion. So we have root position. Let's say here's dominant 7. First inversion. Second inversion. And third inversion. So good idea to go through all the chords and all the inversions and really get them under your fingers as well, because they're really good for when you're voicing chords, when you're laying down parts and putting some accompaniments down. So dominant seventh chords, major seventh chords, minor seventh chords, diminished seventh chords, half diminished seventh chords, minor major seventh chords, augmented fifth with seventh chords, all kinds of seventh chords. Learn them, love them, use them. See you for more in the next video.